am facilitating this discussion. I am not an industry expert necessarily. My name is Liana. I am a co-director of the Station North Tool Library in Baltimore, Maryland, and steering committee chair of the Tool Library Alliance and the Maryland State Makerspace Association. So more of a governance nerd than an insurance nerd, but I do lead our operations here at the library. I've been here for almost 10 years and have been our risk management person for most of that time. So yeah, this is going to be a very open Q&A. You can either put questions in the chat if you're someplace where it's hard to come off mute or come off mute. We will use a combination of Justin's experience. I would love for him to introduce himself next and the wisdom of the group. Justin, take it away.
Hi, Liana. Thanks so much. And it's nice to meet you. I'm Justin Avalar. I am a solo practitioner. I'm a lawyer and work a lot with nonprofits on startup and formation of nonprofits and getting tax exempt status. And basically, everything for the existence of a nonprofit, whether that's liability issues, getting legal waivers, liability, to hiring employees and human resource documents and contracting with other organizations, then just the working as a nonprofit as a small business or business might. Additionally, I am board chair of the of Seattle Reconomy, which runs the Northeast Seattle Tool Library, and as of this year, the Shoreline Tool Library. So Liana is works closely with our executive director, Josh Epstein, which I know some of you probably I know some of you know as well. So. I'm not only do stuff on the legal side in this sort of world, I'm also ingrained in the nonprofit side as well. So it gives me personally very fulfilling, but also helpful, like full 360 view of what's going on. So I could see the documents that I helped draft in use and get to use the nonprofit that I am involved with as my little experimentation lab. So
Cool.
yeah,
Well, thanks, Justin.
yeah,
Yeah, so this is really a session that's intended to be answering specific questions and needs that folks have. They can be as vague as possible. Neil, do you want to kick us off?
Oh, I have more than an hour's worth, so I'm not going to go there. But
Okay.
so I'm Neil Weisblatt. I'm currently on the board of the Vashon Tool Library Makerspace and Fix-It organization. We've been around for about 10 years, about 10 years as a tool library, and about 7 years of doing education and Fix-It events. And we've been morphing of lately. The tool library is flourishing. It's great. It's doing very, very well. But we've been going through a little bit of struggle with with our organization as a whole in trying to sort out how do we see our way both as a unanimity in the board and serve the community as we go forward. So to describe it clearly, we have been teaching classes and we've had a lot of volunteers who've done it over time. And now we're sort of jumping across to try and bring more, the people who've done classes with us want more. And so we've been trying to teach more and more classes, and the characterization of giving a stipend to the people who've been teaching those classes puts us feeling at risk or exposure with the Washington state labor and industry. Many other people see it as workman's comp in other states. And so we've been trying to find a way to recharacterize that compensation or incentive, we'll call it maybe, for our instructors. And so on one side, we've talked about doing contractors, but those contract laws have been getting narrower and narrower because of the gig economy. And our insurance company won't insure us for contractors. They insure our volunteers and they insure our employees if we had employees. And so on one side, we've got the part of the board that sees employees as sort of an abomination. And on the other side, we really need to get, yeah, I know that. And then on the other side, we see a group who really wants to drive all the opportunities, the half full people who want to see, let's go forward and do anything we can to serve the community and get us into a place of either bringing on employees and changing the culture a little bit and people's acceptance of that culture change. And then one more nuance that came to us in the last couple of days is that up to now, all the people who participate in our tool library have made a donation, not a membership purchase, but a donation. We wanted to use those funds to fund all the education stuff we're doing. And part of the board believes that we're sort of absconding with the money that have been donated to the tool library to use it for other purposes. And I'm sort of saying, that makes my head blow up. So we're trying to get an idea about just usual practices within the community, because we were perceived by most people as a tool library, but we're trying to serve our greater community. Are we really doing some moral faux pas by reusing that capital if we disclose it? So I just simply said, let's send a disclosure letter. And they were all like, we can't do that. And I was like, oh, really? And so one is we need to sort out insurance issues if we can find a way to do it. And I think we're going to have to go to employees. I tried talking with the state insurance commissioner to find out who would cover insurance for contractors. And most places we talk to either won't touch us, or they want $1,000 for every volunteer, for every person who wants to teach a class. And these are people who might teach 40 hours a year, not 40 hours a week. And so paying $1,000 for insurance seems insane. I can't find a carrier anywhere in the state will help us. So as I said, I've got an hour's worth of questions.
Great. Thanks, Neil. I've tried to capture them in the chat so we don't lose track of those 3 really good questions.
Okay.
Those are all great questions. Luke, did you have a response? Did you want to add a question?
Yeah.
No, I don't have a response to that. I have a different question, but if anyone's got responses to those, go ahead.
Okay.
I think that so you're looking for these contractors are teaching classes, and you're concerned that they do something wrong, and someone who takes the class sues the contractor.
Or our insurance company doesn't cover the contractors. And so we're trying to find a way to get these people secure. So the thinking is we have 2 levels of it. One side is, can we find a way to reasonably insure them as contractors? But on the other side, shall we say, because of the gig economy, there have been a number of occasions, other makerspaces we've talked to, where they've gotten slapped around by labor and industry and said those people aren't contractors.
That's right.
They're really employees, and don't go down that road. Even though
that's right.
Even though our board is really apprehensive about it, we simply stopped doing all our classes for the last 2 quarters and said only volunteer instructors until we can figure out a way to bring them on as employees and go through all the employee rigmarole, which is a new thing emotionally and economically, and sort of a change of horses, as it were, in industry.
So Neil, I think so. Ellen is absolutely right. If you were to try to cover, sorry about the dogs. If you were to try to use your insurance coverage to cover an independent contractor, that would by its very nature remove the independent contractor from its change its status, their status with sugar with your organization. So the independent contractor is a separate. They're supposed to have their own company, and they seek and get their own insurance, and are at an arm's length contract with you. So they're getting paid to provide services to you, and they get their own insurance and are covering themselves for any accidents or injuries that may happen based on things that they are providing to you. So if you then go provide insurance to them, you're showing to them and to the state that you're considering them an employee. So if the board is thinking, oh, well, maybe we need to do all these things that are nice for contractors, well, maybe these people aren't contractors anymore. These are W-2 employees.
Okay.
And if you go do that, you will owe back taxes and penalties for failing to provide payroll and unemployment insurance. And that's really, as Elle and I said, do not go down that road. Is
Yeah.
very
It's ugly.
expensive.
And the
Justin,
notion
can
of
you?
and the general notion of if money's been given to our nonprofit in one segment and then using it in other segments, is that a no-no?
Sorry, I'm
Yeah, so let me
I can
let me
speak to
characterize
this
that again.
one.
Yeah, so we have a tool library that's been around for 10 years. And
Mhm.
everybody who becomes a tool member, we ask them for a donation. It's not a requirement. You can join without giving us any money. But we ask you to sign the whole harmless forms as for whatever they're worth. But it's basically our customer agreement, as it were. And so those people have been donating money to us for the 10 years. We would like to, or I would like to, I won't say we, I would like to be able to say we as an organization have collected a pool of funds, and we would like to reapply some of those funds to support our other programs, including education and maybe a studio space. And some on the board believe that we shouldn't be allowed to use that money that was donated to or through the tool library for other purposes within inside our nonprofit. And
that
so
so that's an incorrect assumption by the board, unless the money was specifically earmarked when donated.
Mhm.
so
Yeah,
when
so the
we tell people it's a
it
donation, it's a donation to the organization. We don't have to disclose that we won't use it for other purposes.
no, if there is a reasonable expectation of restriction by the donor, so if you give to something called the education fund, for example, there's a reasonable expectation on the donor's part that you're going to use that for education.
Right.
Otherwise, all gifts, so the donor has a right to restrict any donation for any purpose at any time. Um, if they have not restricted that donation, then you're legally and also ethically, based on the Association of Fundraising Professionals, able to use that for the organization's area of greatest need. I think it is worth some transparency with your donors to publish your budget. But you have no legal obligation to use it for any purpose if it hasn't been explicitly restricted by the donor.
So if they gave money to the tool library, if they didn't say this is only to be used for the tool library, then we have
Yep.
no moral obligation.
Yeah,
You can use it for any
and
purpose within your mission.
most organizations want to keep that donation as general as possible because as soon as you add restrictions to allow restrictions to donations, it becomes very difficult to track, as you would imagine.
And I've not only
And
imagined it, we've realized that, and it's part of the reason why I think our treasuring group has had angst about this as they've tried to manage it. They've tried to sort of categorize it, and they said, "Well, then everything is everybody's. We shouldn't keep separate budgets." I said, "No. Oh, we should still be accountable by, shall we say, business line, so we know how we're doing, but it doesn't mean we can't ethically or legally do it." But it's a nonprofit, and they haven't probably done this before, and they have angst, which is all commensurate with being good, responsible financial managers, along with doing the right thing morally. But I think they're sort of oversteering a little. Justin, what organization are you associated with? Are you part? Did I hear you say something with the Shoreline Tool Library?
Yes. The Seattle Economy is the nonprofit 501(c)(3),
Great,
and we run Shoreline Tool Library and
great,
Northeast Seattle Tool Library.
great. Thank you.
all right, I know
That's
Luke had
very
a
helpful
question. Luke,
thinking.
are you
Yes.
able to come off mute and let us know?
Yeah, yeah. I hopefully you can hear me. I'm driving right now, so I will stay mostly focused on driving, but we'll do my best. So
Yes.
we have a tool library, and I've had many questions around revenue reporting. So we have a tool library as well as an architectural salvage, and we framed the sliding scale donation basis membership at the tool library. And I just wonder where the line is because are obviously strongly encouraging donations. And I think there's just a lot of questions because we do pay a lot of sales tax through our architectural salvage. It all goes to the same POS. And I'm curious, they are getting a service for that donation, right? In the Washington state, as far as I know, is you're not supposed to get services for donations. That's what I mean.
Right. That's a federal regulation.
Yeah.
So let me just double check that I understand your question. I'll pass it to Justin. So your members are making a donation in exchange for access to the tool library, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so a lot like Neil. And you're wondering if there's any requirements. Can you restate the question?
Yeah, I don't understand how it's legal for us to not pay sales tax on those.
Sales tax does not apply to services, only goods.
That is
There you
different than
go.
That
what
Yeah.
I've read recently, but
that
if
depends
that's
on
what
your
you are
state.
saying, then that's great.
In
I'm
the
in
state of Washington,
Yeah,
in the
we're in
state of Washington, sales tax does not apply to services.
Okay. Well, that is different
Many
than the previous information.
many nonprofits are also exempt from paying sales tax under state law. So in Maryland, nonprofits don't pay sales tax.
Yeah.
We still collect and remit sales tax on items that we sell. So we sell t-shirts, we collect and remit that sales tax. But that's balanced out by any sales tax that we do end up paying because we're, just out shopping or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. We've gone down that rabbit hole because, I mean, we sell building materials, salvage building materials. And as far as we were told, we're going to have to pay standard sales tax on all of those sales.
Right. Because you're
But
collecting that from your customers and then you pass it on to the state.
correct. Yeah, we're a lot
Yeah.
like the Taylor Economy in our setup and the Shoreline setup as well, where y'all have kind of both the same building.
As long as you have a point of sale that collects accurately, it's just a pass through tax, so it shouldn't be a big deal. And this Washington State, I can't speak to, as someone correctly pointed out, every state is different, and I can only speak to the state of Washington in this instance. But the Washington State Department of Revenue does have specific line items explaining what is and is not taxed. So if you go to their website, you can clearly see items that are taxed versus not taxed. So if
Okay.
you want clarification, just go to their website.
Yeah, I will definitely do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. Are there other questions? I have some that I know come up commonly that I can pitch out, but if you have specifics, that's better.
Justin, I have another brief question. Periodically, we'll have a tool sale of unused items or things that have been donated to us that are in excess. Should we be collecting sales tax on those sold used items?
Most likely, yes. Yes. You could phrase it as a donation and not have a required amount, so people could pay nothing. And that would be a way, technically, not to collect sales tax, but it's best to collect if especially if you're just saying this is the price. Just collect sales tax and remit it to the state. It's not too challenging. It's really not that hard, especially if you have a point of sale.
I know
Yeah,
this
so
session
if
is
we've not-
being
if we-
recorded. Oh, sorry. I know this session is being recorded, but I was going to ask Justin, is that what the Seattle Economy does? Because I know that was the model for your tool sale. So you can just nod yes or no. So it's not recorded. I'm just joking. But
So no, they do. Seattle Economy does a donation based. So it's not a fixed price. So it's whatever people choose to pay, which can be nothing. So if that is what you decide to do, I don't know what your model is. So if what we do at Seattle Economy is let people, and we have a variety of stuff that just comes in. It's working, not working. We don't know. People, who knows with some of these tools. So it's sort of choose your own adventure. So people pay what they want to pay, and it's all donation. So in that instance, it falls under we've felt like it falls under not taxable for sales tax in the state of Washington.
I will say to Luke's question earlier about what if you get something in exchange for a donation, that is okay. You can get something in exchange for a donation, but the value of what you get in return gets deducted from the tax deductibility of that donation. So if you bought a ticket to a party and the ticket cost $75 and the fair market value of the meal that you got was $50, then only $25 of that would go onto the donation receipt as a tax deductible donation. So I doubt that you are receipting people for the donations that they make at your tool sales. But it gets a little bit complicated if someone then wants to deduct that from their taxes because they've already gotten something in return.
That's right. Most people do not take itemized deductions these days,
Yeah.
so it's gotten a lot easier. But if you did want to see an example of a form for receipt, you can go to seattleeconomy.org, and in the footer of the website, I've put in a tax receipt form that shows a very most organizations will have very similar form. I copied when I made it. I copied it from another organization, so it just gives you a basic layout and how that would work.
Yeah. Quick question on that too. We actually designed our donation receipt from y'all's, Justin.
Oh,
But
there you go.
yeah. No, I've talked with Josh quite a bit. I'm with Eastside Rebuild. My header went away, but on donation receipting, I was told at one point, write what is being donated, because we do donation receipts for our big materials that are donated. And then another point I was told, don't write anything on it, you're going to go to jail. I'm curious about that, or specifically, don't write the value of the items. You're going to go
Don't
to
write the
jail.
value.
Yeah.
You won't go to jail, but it's
Yeah.
up to the donor to determine the fair market value of their donation. And if it's over 500, they need a formal appraisal.
Over
But that's
500.
totally up to them.
Interesting. 5,000 is
Yeah.
the number that I heard previously. Yeah, it's so
500.
confusing. Okay.
If you're deducting an in-kind donation on your taxes and the value is more than 500, you need to have an appraisal.
Okay.
We have a question, two questions from Greta about insurance in the chat. One, general business insurance question mark, which I think it's worth just reviewing quickly, the difference between property liability event directors and officers. And then, is there insurance for people who are unhappy with things about your organization? So like an unsatisfied customer insurance.
Unsatisfied customer insurance.
I don't think so. I mean, my understanding is that unless you've done, if you've done someone harm, then that might be and they can demonstrate that you've injured them or their property would be covered by insurance. Greta, is there a specific example that you're thinking of that you can clarify with that?
Not really. Well, let's see. I'm just thinking if say you have volunteers they're working, or you have that's one example that comes to mind. You have volunteers they're working, and one of them gets injured, or somebody like you've repaired something for someone, and they decide, well, they wanted it to work better, or they wanted to, just whatever reason people have to be unhappy with things that you've made or done for them.
Emily, it looks like you had a thought.
I was just saying, so the second part is why you need to have a waiver. So people sign stuff to say, like, I recognize that these are volunteers. I recognize they're going to do their best effort to fix stuff. It's not our responsibility if you brought in a broken thing and it leaves broken, right? Like if you brought in a thing that was already damaged and you leave and it's still broken, or it's even more broken, like that's part of it, is you have a waiver that is part of that. And at least here in Minnesota where we are, like, I think all of our Fix-It clinics have those. So you are essentially absolving yourself, and somebody signs that when they come in, that there is a risk that while these folks will do their best and many of them have experience, this is not like a guarantee that you're going to walk away, especially for a free service. You're going to walk away with something that's like perfectly how you want it. So that part's there. And the volunteer thing is a completely separate issue when it comes to insurance, but the stuff is covered by a waiver.
Okay.
Justin, could you briefly just review the types of insurance?
So there's general business liability insurance that will cover the property itself from things like slip and falls. Somebody comes into the tool library, falls, breaks their hip, sues the organization. That will cover that. It also should generally cover people working at the organization, and if you have the right policy, it will cover volunteers doing things at the organization. There's also directors and officers insurance that covers your board and any corporate officers that you have from doing in case they're sued, which might happen if there's a slip and fall or something happens, somebody gets injured, they claim that it was violation of directors' fiduciary duties to do. Directors have legal obligations to the organization to basically make sure that the organization's not running afoul of anything. And it's hard to sue directors, but people might. So you always want board members will ask and should reasonably expect directors and officers insurance. And so that will cover them in the case of a lawsuit. Your general policy will also have a liability coverage. Do we know if there's been a liability lawsuit? Hard to say specifically, but these sort of things where somebody fixes something and then it catches fire and then somebody sues, that's a super common sort of lawsuit. If you have a disclaimer, a waiver disclaiming liability, that'll go a long way. And if you have a policy that covers you, the organization and the volunteers and the employees, that'll cover the cost of the litigation as well. So you need two things: you need a waiver and you need insurance. And you'll have to talk to an insurance agent to start getting that going. But the waiver, you don't need an insurance agent for. So
They might want to look
seems
at
like-
it though.
Yes.